We may now take our seats. Your Excellency, the President of this great nation and the Commander-in-Chief of the Defense Forces, Dr. William Samoei Ruto, the Prime Cabinet Secretary, Honorable Musalia Mudavadi, the President, TDB, Admasu Tadesse, the Cabinet Secretary, Treasury, Professor Njuguna Ndung'u, all Cabinet Secretaries present, all governors present, all Principal Secretaries present, all partners and captains of the industry, distinguished invited guests, ladies and gentlemen, Your Excellency, sir, with your permission, at this point, I would like to invite Mary Kamari to come and make some opening remarks. Let's put our hands together as we welcome her.
Your Excellency, Dr. William Samoei Ruto, President of the Republic of Kenya and Commander-in-Chief of the Defense Forces, Honorable Professor Njuguna Ndung'u, Cabinet Secretary, the National Treasury and Economic Planning of the Republic of Kenya and TDB Group incoming chairperson and a host of governor, Dr. Honorable Lenganadine Padayachi, Minister of Finance, Economic Planning and Development of the Republic of Mauritius and the TDB Group chairperson, Admasu Tadesse, the TDB Group President Emeritus and Managing Director, Honorable Ministers, Excellencies, Governors, and TDB Group, Board of Governors, Excellencies, Ambassadors, High Commissioners, partners, clients, and stakeholders, distinguished guests, members of the media, all protocols observed. My name is Mary Kamari, Group Executive for Corporate Affairs and Investor Relations. I would like to welcome you to the 39th Annual General Meeting of the TDB Group of Board of Governors, which we have the immense honor to have opened today by none other than His Excellency, Dr. William Ruto, the President of the Republic of Kenya. Thank you, Your Excellency, for being with us today, despite your busy schedule. We deeply appreciate your time. And a warm welcome once again to our governors today, to the city of Nairobi, known to many, the green city in the sun, and the only city in the world with a national park on its doorstep. Some of us have been here for quite some time, still enjoying your country, Your Excellency. I'd like to extend appreciation to the National Treasurer and the Economic Planning of the Republic of Kenya and Honorable Cabinet Secretary Professor Njuguna Ndungu for hosting this year's TDB Group AGM. Your Excellency, Kenya is one of the founding members of TDB and has been one of the homes of the operations hub of our bank since mid-1990s. As we'll be hearing from our Group Managing Director, we have now moved to our new home in Nairobi. Distinguished guests, our bank, TDB, has transformed into a group. As our speakers will hear from our president, is now 38 years old. I'm proud to say that our spirit of innovation and reforms we have enabled over the years have led to drive more economic, social, environmental impact in the region we serve, which now counts to 25 member states across our continent. This was made possible thanks to many of our people who are here today, our shareholders, our partners, and our clients. Your contribution is appreciated. Let me now share the program for today. We'll hear first the statement from our host, Honorable Professor Njuguna Ndungu, Cabinet Secretary, the National Treasury and Economic Planning of the Republic of Kenya. Welcome, sir.
Thank you very much, and good morning, Your Excellency. I'm sorry of the program area that we had anticipated was that I would be coming in later, but the most important thing is actually to say that being a host, it's always very good to make some few remarks just to recognize the TDB which has come this far to support our development discourse. I will make sure that I recognize the protocol as set out. But most importantly, ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of the government of Kenya, I would like to warmly welcome you all to Nairobi, Kenya, and to the 39th Annual General Meeting of Trade and Development Bank Group, which is themed Agility and Adaptability for Sustainable Growth and Impact. And that for us is very, very critical coming from where we have come in this period of the perfect storm, the persistent shocks that have hit the African economies. Let me also acknowledge the virtual presence of the chair of the TDB Board of Governors, Dr. Padayachi, who is going to be virtually present. And he hosted us last year in Mauritius, and others who also have taken the virtual attendance. Fellow governors, the theme is very, very important for this annual general meeting. And we want to look into it in terms of adaptability and agility. And it resonates very well with Kenya at the current stage, which has adapted to several global negative economic shocks that have been persistent and have created a permanent effect in our economy. So we are trying to struggle and reform ourselves from that. The shocks have not only heightened risks and concerns, but also has presented us with opportunities to reboot our policy framework and efforts to build a more competitive economic environment. We do believe that this, driven by the African Continental Free Trade Area and the relationship that we have in COMESA, SADC, and the East African community, is going to play an important role to actually realize the opportunities through which we need to reform and recover our economy. We in Kenya are looking to do our best and our part as one of the financial hubs to help attract and support efficient investment into Africa, as well as trade in the bloc and create payments infrastructure that is going to be supportive of that. Fellow governors, regarding financing engagements with TDB, Kenya has worked closely with the TDB as a financial partner and has enabled investment in various projects that are very important in terms of areas of renewable energy, for example, the Takana Wind Power Plant. It has supported our SMEs, it has supported our healthcare, it has supported the agro-industry and banking and finance, and more importantly, we are working towards the telecommunication and the real estate sectors. TDB has structured finance and even trade finance products for Kenya, like the G2G, which has actually provided us with deferred LCs, which has given us some space in terms of petroleum supply for a longer period, but more importantly, has given us some strength to withstand the volatility of the nominal exchange rate at a time when we needed that. Ladies and gentlemen, let me also turn focus to the TDB group. And the TDB group has achieved great milestones over the years with its investment, capitalization, and even its own ratings have improved significantly. The group has increased its capacity and global networks, intermediating international and regional capital into the region on relatively attractive terms compared with what other sovereign financial institutions and corporates can get on their own. I wish to commend the TDB Group's spirit of innovation, especially its capital and group structure that is enabling greater capacity for regional interventions. In the last decade, TDB has attracted 20 institutional investors that consist of African-based pension funds, sovereign wealth funds, international financial institutions, and insurance companies among the 42 shareholders that comprise of the TDB Group. The TDB Operations Hub in Nairobi that we will visit this afternoon is also a confirmation of a strong partner in future, because having such a hub gives us commitment that it will be there in future. To the group president, my friend Adimasu Tadese, please accept our heartfelt congratulations to you and your team for not only maintaining high credit ratings over the years, but also you have continuously improved the structures, the systems and policies, and even acquisition for new sovereign and institutional shareholders. We have benefited a lot in terms of advice. We have benefited a lot in terms of working with us whenever we have different and difficult periods of solutions that we really needed. Fellow governors, TDB remains committed in supporting African countries without imposing high-risk premium despite the prevailing negative conditions in our countries brought about by negative and persistent shocks. For this reason, I reaffirm Kenya's commitment to the TDB Group and to its vision to be a world-class African trade development finance institution, advancing the economic development, integration, and prosperity of the region. We are proud of our bank and salute its committed the management, and staff for its achievement. As the bank marches forward, I personally look forward to continuing to be part of this success story as the governor and even more. On this note, I would like to thank all of you for being here today, and I also want to wish my fellow governors fruitful deliberations during today's 39th Board of Governors meeting, and I very much hope you'll also enjoy the stay in Kenya while attending the TDB business. So welcome and asante sana.
Thank you, Honorable Minister, for your remarks. As you highlighted, we've intervened in many sectors in this country. Your Excellency, one of the key landmark projects the President has always reminded us is Turkana Wind, and we take pride to have been not only an investor, but also a lender. This takes commitment, but also visionary leadership, and we thank our President for having done that. Thank you. Let me now May I now ask for your attention to listen to our TDB Group Board of Governors Chairperson, Dr. Honorable Renganadine Padayachi, Minister of Finance, Economic Planning and Development of the Republic of Mauritius. Thank you.
Your Excellency, Dr. William Samuel Ruto, CGH, President of the Republic of Kenya and Commander-in-Chief of the Defense Forces, Honorable Professor Ndungu, Cabinet Secretary, CBS, the National Treasury and Economic Planning of the Republic of Kenya, and TDB Group incoming Chairperson and our host Governor. Admasu Tadese, TDB Group President Emeritus and Managing Director, Honorable Ministers and Excellencies, Governors of TDB, Excellencies, Ambassadors and High Commissioners, partners, clients and stakeholders, distinguished guests and members of the media, all protocol observed. Good morning. In my capacity as Chairman of the TDB Group Board of Governors, let me join Cabinet Secretary Professor Ndungu and welcome you all to this 39th Annual General Meeting of the Board of Governors of the Trade and Development Bank Group, albeit from a distance. I regret not being in Nairobi in person, but I'm pleased to be able to participate virtually. First and foremost, today I would like to express our deep appreciation to His Excellency President Ruto for gracing us and opening this AGM. His Excellency President Ruto has been a strong champion of regional economic integration. Ladies and gentlemen, this past year, TDB was honored with several prestigious awards from highly regarded entities such as the African Banker Awards, Global Finance, and Global Trade Review. These awards validate our unwavering commitment to excellence, impact, and sustainability in the region. I'm proud to tell you that our group has supported well over 1 million jobs, over half of which are held by women. We have also supported improved access to energy and infrastructure, industrialization, and also health and education. TDB Group contributes to the security of supply of essential commodities which are strategic to our stability and economic growth of our member states, while also promoting greater intra- and inter-African trade and regional integration. Likewise, the group co-finances its member states' strategic infrastructure plans to promote economic growth and support forex-generating export sectors, local ownership, and import substitution. Furthermore, it contributes to our region's industrialization and the integration of our economies into global value chains while strengthening regional ones. An example is the financing of 5 cement plants in 5 different member states involving some $200 million. In addition, it works on reinforcing the continent's financial industry by working with local financial institutions through which it supports SMEs. Your Excellency, Mr. President, fellow governors, ladies and gentlemen, over and above its impact and service, it is uplifting to note that TDB has recorded strong performance in the various areas of portfolio and asset growth, as well as profitability and credit quality, standing tall among its peers. As testament to its stability and reliability, TDB Group has maintained strong credit ratings. Moody's affirmed it as investment-grade Baa3 ratings with a stable outlook. Additionally, GCR upgraded the investment-grade ratings to BBB+ with a stable outlook, highlighting the strength and positive trajectory of TDB Group's performance. Meanwhile, Fitch Ratings affirmed TDB Group's rating with a positive outlook. These credit ratings confirm TDB Group's commitment to maintaining financial stability and its ability to adapt and respond even in very adverse global macroeconomic conditions. As the Finance Minister of Mauritius and the TDB Governor for my country, I'm proud that several of our subsidiaries are domiciled in Mauritius, including its youngest, the TDB Captive Insurance Company, in addition to Eastern and Southern African Trade Advisors Limited, the fund manager of our successful Eastern and Southern African Trade Fund. I'm also very keen to discuss the theme of this year's AGM. The topic of this year, agility and adaptability for sustainable growth and impact, was indeed chosen wisely and perfectly in line with the agenda of the government of Mauritius. While Mauritius has successfully rebounded from the COVID-19 crisis with a GDP growth of 8.8% in 2022 and an estimated growth of 8% for the fiscal year 2023-2024, our aim is now to accelerate the pace of our green transition. To achieve 60% of our energy mix from renewable energy, I have announced in the last budget speeches major reforms, incentives, and measures. I have no doubt that the discussion held in the context of the 39th AGM of the TDB Group will give further insights on these key topics for Mauritius and many other African countries. As Tony Elumelu rightly said, the transformation of Africa is not one man's job. It's a job for all of us. This is precisely what, through TDB Group and all together, we are working together. Ladies and gentlemen, as I close, I would like to express our high appreciation and gratitude for the outstanding work accomplished by our highly skilled TDB Group management team under the leadership of Admasu Tadesse, Group Managing Director. I also wish to similarly extend our appreciation to the Group Board of Directors and in particular to the Chairperson and the Chairs of the various board committees for their steadfast stewardship and guidance. These are undeniably complex and challenging times for both the financial sector and several of our member states. Navigating through these circumstances requires active and prudent management and wise governance. It is with great honor and privilege that I have served as your steward over the last year, and I'm confident that under the leadership of Honorable Professor Ndungu, TDB Group will continue to thrive. I look forward to passing on the baton. On this note, let me once again express my gratitude to His Excellency President Ruto and to our esteemed host minister for the warm welcome extended to the TDB Group family. I thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Honorable, and the Chair of our board. As you heard, Your Excellency, despite the challenges that we faced, all of us, under his chairmanship, the bank was able to deliver great results and development impact, and also welcomed 6 new shareholders. Let me now take this opportunity to once again introduce our Group Managing Director and our President, Mr. Admasu Tadesse, to give his remarks. Welcome, Mr. President.
Good morning, everybody. I will try to be efficient, as financial institutions are often expected to be, so allow me to align myself with all the protocols that have already been observed. But I must, at the outset, give my deep thanks to His Excellency, Dr. William Ruto, the President of the Republic of Kenya, for gracing us today and giving us the opening remarks later on. I would also like to thank the Chairman of the Board of Governors, who we just heard from, Dr. Padayachi, for giving us leadership over the past years and giving us an excellent welcome in Mauritius, where we have our principal offices. On the occasion of this annual meeting, I would like to take a few words to recognize Kenya's historic role as one of the architects and founding members of TDB in 1985. All institutions go through history, have turbulent times. We had our own share. And the Republic of Kenya was one of the visionary member states which nurtured and protected TDB in its beginnings as we were finding our feet to grow and transform into the award-winning autonomous financial institution that we are today. One that has transformed into a group and that now has assets of about $8.4 billion under management. We also have several subsidiaries today and a much wider geographic footprint that crisscrosses the entire continent, including West Africa and Central Africa as well. Today, ladies and gentlemen, TDB boasts 47 shareholders, of which 27 are sovereigns and 20 are institutional shareholders. They come from different regions of the African continent, and we have two particular sovereigns that are new in this annual meeting today, and I'd like to just call out and welcome them. We have the Republic of Ghana and also the Republic of Senegal, who are now new members of TDB. And for those of you who wondered why we love these two countries so much, yes, we do love them, but they also happen to be the respective homes of the African Continental Free Trade Area Secretariat, which is based in Accra, Ghana. And of course, Senegal is the host country of the African Civil Aviation Commission, which we also lend to. So it always made a lot of sense for us to have these countries in our mix as well. I should also very quickly mention that we're delighted that the Republic of Botswana from SADC has also joined our membership. They come on the foothills of Mozambique and also one or two other countries in the sub-region there who had not been in our mix. And this just shows how we are coming of age as being the bank of the tripartite. The tripartite region, as you will know, refers to the COMESA Regional Economic Community, the East African Regional Community, and of course, the Southern African Development Community. This group of institutional investors that I referred to earlier on, today, together collectively account for almost $300 million of institutional capital invested in TDB since we innovated our capital structure. This is a symbol that African capital exists and is willing to invest in its own development in Africa. Very recently, we had the occasion of launching a brand new instrument for equity investment in the bank, a novel instrument called Class C shares. It's actually also dubbed Green Plus shares. We launched it at Sharm el-Sheikh at the previous COP 27, and we are very grateful that the African Development Bank took the lead to subscribe to the initial offering, and now we have a whole host of other institutional investors looking to come into that particular form of investment in TDB Group. So this is us walking the talk of being committed to climate action. Your Excellency, Mr. President, esteemed governors present, distinguished guests, we are all very cognizant of the macroeconomic challenges which have affected our world since last year. Our Cabinet Secretary has made reference to this, but I would like to say that despite the challenges and the headwinds that we faced in the year 2022, we managed to record very strong performance yet again. Our institutional performance reflects a group performance that has several entities in it. I'd like just to take a moment to recognize the leaders of the different entities within the group. We have the CEO of the Trade and Development Bank, which is Michael Awori. Mr. Awori, if you can just stand up so people can see you. And in case you thought it was an all-male show, it's not. We have the lady who runs the Trade and Development Fund, Madame Gloria Mamba. Gloria Mamba. And then we have Mr. Daniel Lamchun, who runs our Trade Finance Fund out of Mauritius. He's not here today, but we are happy to acknowledge him as well. And then the last entity within the group is our TDB Captive Insurance Company, which is spearheaded by Dr. Goodman Chakanyuka, who's also here today. If you can stand up. In 2022, we worked counter-cyclically, as many of you would expect us to step up our financing to drive greater impact where feasible. Financial institutions are not always able to drive funding as much as they would like because of some of the complexities. But our long-term project and infrastructure finance operations managed to register 17% year-on-year growth in our approvals for transactions in several economic sectors, including the renewable energy sector. 17% in a difficult year is notable. We're also pleased that through our trade finance window, we focused on tackling the disrupted supply chains and the disrupted trade flows that we all grappled with in the context of all the discontinuities worldwide. And we managed to boost our growth by 13% year-on-year in the trade finance space. Across our operations, we have delivered fit-for-purpose financing to a mix of clients. We serve not just governments, but also corporates and SMEs, as well as other banks within our member states. And we often do this in partnership mode. We syndicate with other financial institutions, with other development banks, with commercial banks, and we also crowd in insurance partners from within Africa and also London, the Lloyd's of London group, that is. We have also continued to observe high standards with respect to environmental and social safeguards, as one would, of course, expect from a DFI. At the end of 2022, I'm happy to say that 71% of our portfolio exposure was for transactions that posed low or no environmental and social risk. So we are also walking the talk in terms of observing the triple bottom line ethos of development finance. Against this backdrop of developmental returns that I've spoken to in project finance across various economic sectors, I would like to now turn to the matter of the bottom line. We are a financial institution. People are always very interested in the bottom line. And in this regard, I have referred to our asset size having reached $8.4 billion, but I'd like to happily share with you that we managed to record a net income for the year 2022 of $210 million. And we managed to maintain a healthy level of asset quality at 2.89% of NPLs. Our net income grew quite briskly. This number that I just quoted of 210 million is a 19% year-on-year increase. And that just shows how strongly we've managed to navigate the headwinds we have discovered in these years since COVID-19. This net income level, of course, does reflect in a very important ratio. We have shareholders present here. That turns out to a return on equity of 11.35%. That has been the return to shareholders. And for those of you who are in here who've not heard of the number, I hope you're smiling. I also wish to point out that our shareholders' capital and reserves year on year grew by 14%. And this is evidence that we recapitalize a lot of our profits. We don't just distribute the profits, we channel them back into development finance and serve more of our clients that way. As a result of the very strong performance we've registered in 2022, the TDB Group Board of Directors has recommended a dividend distribution at this annual meeting. This will be considered in the closed session later this afternoon. I hope the governors will proceed with the decision that has been recommended. We will give you more details on that in due course. A very quick word about one of the new and young entities within our group, the Trade and Development Fund. The Trade and Development Fund is a different legal entity within TDB Group. It was launched in 2020, about 3 years ago, to house and grow TDB's deeply concessional funding and grant funding for capacity building and technical assistance, as well as other programs we intend to launch in the future. Programs that will help refinance possibly debt positions of some of our member states on a best effort basis. We all know that Africa's private sector is dominated by small and medium enterprises and micro enterprises. TDF has long had a very strong program supporting this segment of the business community. We've been able to increasingly reach groups that are traditionally underserved and not easily reachable through the main banking operations of TDB. This past year, the TDF SME program supported various enterprises across agribusiness and manufacturing, among others. One particular project of note supported 700 MSMEs and helped create some 20,000 jobs. Another project based here in Kenya involved support to 3,000 smallholder coconut farmers who managed to dramatically improve their revenues and productivity. With this glimpse of some of the activities of TDF, I'm delighted to share that we'll be holding during this TDB annual meetings our first inaugural Board of Governors meeting for TDF, which is separate from the bank, as I mentioned. And this is a coming of age of TDB Group where we have different entities that have different areas of specialization. It would be remiss of me not to talk about our asset management operations. We managed to take over a fund management company that we had a 51% shareholding in over the past years. Now we own 100% of this fund manager company based in Mauritius. This fund manager now manages a special fund that's sitting at, not so much because it's a young fund, it's $150 million or so, but it's managed to deliver an absolute return of 15.35% in US dollar terms since its launch. And of course, the performance last year was just under 6%. And the benchmark is not normal equity returns of double digits. This is a money market fund type of investment vehicle. So we target high single digits, not double digits. I would also like to mention that our captive insurance company that is also fully launched and operational, also domiciled in Mauritius, is now doing very well. And we managed to deliver a 125% increase in turnover over the last year and start registering healthy profitability. These are all the different entities within the TDB group that are now all in the black and making very healthy contributions to the overall group results. A financial institution of repute is not just about numbers of asset growth and profitability. It's very much about ratings. And so TDB Group, I'm very pleased to share with you, has managed to buck the tide of downgrades that have afflicted many of our jurisdictions here in Africa. We were reaffirmed as investment grade by Moody's. We actually had an unusual upgrade from another rating agency, also in the investment grade space. So we are managing to hold the ground in a very difficult environment, and we thank the member states who've gone out of their way to stand by the bank and help ensure that we can continue to deliver and grow according to the Agenda 2063 vision. Ladies and gentlemen, we're not just a triple bottom line institution in terms of ESG, environment that is, and social impact and financial returns, but we also believe in excellence and sustainability. In this regard, I'm pleased to share with you that our young TDB Tower here in Nairobi, which is a first-class high-grade building, was recently EDGE certified as a green building. This was due to the substantial savings in terms of water and energy consumption that the building uses, and is also in terms of the very significant reductions in use of carbon-intensive building materials as the building was being put up. Of course, we did pay a price for having this kind of a green construction approach. We were delayed by about a year and a half for the conclusion of the building, but the result is a beautiful green building and a first-class product that will now very nicely populate the skyline of Nairobi. But I don't want to leave you with the impression that our new premises here in Nairobi is a big part of the TDB story in Kenya. It's not. We have a very strong footprint of impact here, as we do in other founding member states across the Eastern and Southern Africa region. You heard briefly Madame Kamari making reference to the landmark Turkana Wind Power Project, but that's just one of many. We have supported numerous other projects across several sectors, such as agribusiness, manufacturing, healthcare, including hospitals, transport sector, including KQ, ICT companies, other renewable energy projects in the geothermal area, real estate, the financial sector in terms of many of the banks here in Kenya, and also SMEs. So you can see the very wide mix of sectors and entities that have benefited from the operations, products, and services of TDB Group. As we look forward to our continued impact in the region, I'm pleased to announce this morning, on the occasion of Kenya hosting the annual meetings, that we have, in the wisdom of our board of directors, approved a symbolic corporate social responsibility grant to a deserving project here in Kenya. The recipient is the Thome Water Project in Laikipia. This project is located in an area which has faced extended droughts in this country, as we've heard time and time again. It has struggled with unreliable water supply throughout the year and prior years as well. And we've worked closely with the Ministry of Environment that actually identified and helped establish a mitigation project in this regard. Our grant is $100,000, which will contribute towards the purchasing of dam liners to help conserve water and to help support tree seedlings being planted to strengthen the ecosystem of that area. And before I invite the representatives of this very impactful project, I would like to very briefly once again give my heartfelt appreciations to the government of Kenya, led by His Excellency Dr. William Ruto, the good president, and of course the cabinet secretary who represents Kenya on our board of governors, for being a very strong member state in TDB and making our lives very easy to operate across the region from Nairobi. On this note, I would like to invite the Honorable Tuya, the Cabinet Secretary for Environment, to come to the stage together with the project representatives of Thome Project. I think Madame Nganga, Wanjiku Nganga, among others, will be here to receive the symbolic check that we would like to hand over on the occasion of this ceremony. So if the representatives of the project are here, we would like you to come forward, please, and do the honors with the good minister. And we would like to also invite two of the chairpersons of the TDB entities. We have Madame Dlamini, who's the chairperson of the TDB Group Board of Directors. Madame Dlamini, Alice, if you're here, and Professor Sasa, who's the chairman of the Trade and Development Fund. These are the two entities that do this kind of very good development financing decisions that help these types of entities. So Madame Dlamini, I hope you're here. And if not, I guess I can stand in for her. So if you can please bring forward the check so that we can honor the grantee and put some smiles and let the good President of the Republic know we care about the small folks as well.
Thank you, Group Managing Director, for your enlightening presentation. Under your leadership, we have experienced a continued transition and transformation of the bank, and look forward to do more with you as your team. Can I now ask my colleague to invite Cabinet Secretary Njuguna Ndungu to welcome His Excellency. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and thank you very much for this morning. My task now is a little bit simpler. Mine is to invite His Excellency to make his keynote speech. But before I do that, you can see that I'm smiling because we already have my colleague is already smiling because he has some support. And the second thing is that I'm smiling because I have a potential check coming from the dividend. You can imagine that is awesome. So that is good for smiling in the morning. But Your Excellency, it gives me a singular honor and pleasure to welcome you to deliver your keynote speech to this gathering of the 39th annual general meeting of the TDB, which we really accomplish. We are happy for accomplishing some of the ambitious prospects and even development projects that we anticipate. Your Excellency.
Thank you very much, Minister. Please, let's take our seats. The current Chair, Minister of Finance, Economic Planning and Development of the Republic of Mauritius, and TDB Group Chairperson, Cabinet Secretary, National Treasury of the Republic of Kenya, Mr. Albert Muchanga, Commissioner for Trade and Industry, Africa Union Commission, ministers present and TDB shareholders and representatives, my good friend, Mr. Ademasu Tadese, TDB Group President and MD, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, guests and visitors, good morning. Let me first take this opportunity to, on behalf of the people of Kenya, to be grateful to TDB Group for the presentation of the $100,000 to Tome Water project in Laikipia. I can confirm that they deserve every support. And it is true, they've gone through a difficult time of failed rains over the last 5 seasons. When I looked at the check, I was keen. The signature was missing. So please remember to sign. Remember to sign the check. Everywhere in the world, the challenge of effective leadership has always presented itself in terms of ability to successfully achieve development objectives in a dynamic and complex operating environment. At all times, sustainable development is expected to take place within a context characterized by increasingly devastating threats and weaknesses across all sectors. In our time, everyone interested in growing the economy by increasing wealth, creating jobs, eradicating poverty, and reducing inequality has to confront the fundamental challenge of an increasingly tight fiscal space and the emergence of rapidly mutating and highly complicated new threats. All these threats have been explained to us today in the morning, from what happened with COVID all the way to the very unlikely, or so it was thought, war in the middle of Europe, and all the other things in between, and especially the big threat of climate change. The cumulative burden of these challenges and threats can encumber economies to be so oppressive that pessimistic assessments of the prospects of growth become mainstream, and the idea that some regions of the world are not doing well at all begin to take root. It is true that post-colonial Africa struggled to develop because it had very limited resources to liberate its economy from institutions that were extractive by design a low industrial capacity that ensured that raw materials were mainly exported, minimal economic diversity, and of course, the challenge of political instability. Efforts to acquire resources to break out of this vicious circle of underdevelopment and poverty only plunged many of our economies into an inescapable debt trap, which reduced the resources available to initiate progressive programs and policies, and at the same time made governments more vulnerable to natural as well as human threats across many sectors. The nomenclature of economic classification and development categories is quite telling, with least developed countries and heavily indebted poor countries becoming normalized methods of describing post-colonial Africa and other states of the global south. Recent high-profile events have demonstrated that the entire global economy is generally vulnerable to shocks and disruptions due to growing economic interdependence and globalization. At the same time, they also underscored that advanced economies have greater capacity to invest in measures to improve recovery from these events and resilience to future threats. These measures are often taken at the expense of more vulnerable counterparts, whose prospects invariably depend on closer cooperation on terms defined by such considerations as equity and justice. Volatility in global commodity prices has always exposed the vulnerability of many economies. Often, prices of raw materials exported from these economies collapse drastically, while at the same time, that of such essential imports as petroleum rises steeply. Every episode of such crisis sinks our economies deeper into difficulty, weakening currencies, raising interest rates, and increasing inflation. The most fundamental legacy of COVID-19 now stands as the manner in which it exposed global inequality and injustice. As movement was severely curtailed by the closure of borders and grounding of aviation services, global supply chains were constricted and disrupted, leading to unprecedented distortion of market dynamics everywhere. Many developed industrial nations immediately redirected investments towards the development of essential supplies, including vaccines and protectives, which were stockpiled, exposing importing countries to a near catastrophe. The post-pandemic situation has been difficult, to say the least. We are still on a recovery path, rebuilding after the devastation of tourism, transport, and export sectors. Inevitably, we have taken a massive hit in terms of worsened fiscal imbalance and deeper debt, which has been worsened by the emergence of a high interest rate environment. The geopolitical tension that exploded into open conflict in Ukraine have also intensified this very difficult situation. But that is not the end of the matter for Africa. Our plate is stacked much higher with urgent and serious problems. Our continent is experiencing extreme weather events of unprecedented variety, frequency, and magnitude. Flooding, wildfires, landslides, droughts, cyclones, and other disasters have inflicted a dire toll on communities across our continent. The Sahel, West Africa, Central Africa, the Horn of Africa, East and Southern Africa have all been affected by these serious calamities. Human life, damage to property, and the destruction of infrastructure have not only worsened suffering for vulnerable people, but also dampened economic prospects. It has become inescapably clear that adverse climatic events are actively threatening our hard-won development gains, including advances in providing public services like health, education, security, and investment in national infrastructure like transport and communication networks. Reflection on these matters have also defined a critical weakness in the prevailing thinking in development and climate action, which treats the two imperatives as separate, unrelated undertakings. In the course of engaging the international community on these twin imperatives, African countries have found common ground in their unique shared perspectives as climate action frontline territories located at the intersection between environmental disasters, economic crisis, and development constraints. We recognize at once that the adverse impacts of climate change pose real and serious threats to all our achievements as well as prospects with regard to development, and that at the same time, financial capacity and therefore economic development is urgently needed to provide necessary resources to invest in effective climate action. Increasingly, we are having to make the difficult choice between economic growth and climate action, when, as a matter of fact, both courses of action must be pursued simultaneously because they are complementary. One will not happen without the other. On the basis of this realization, African countries have begun to approach multilateral engagement on climate change and economic development from a new perspective, anchored on a commitment to a green, climate-positive growth, and which profiles Africa as the green continent of the future, abounding with natural resources, investment opportunities, and human capital. What I'm trying to say here is that we have to reposition ourselves. We have to reposition our continent in the context of the situation, the challenges that face the globe, and we have to reposition ourselves in the context of the assets that we have. Renewable assets, being the continent with almost 65% of uncultivated arable land, being the continent that has the youngest human capital, and being the continent that has the greatest potential for greening growth and ensuring that we decarbonize industrialization, decarbonize manufacturing. And we have to reposition ourselves, represent Africa in a different way, away from the continent that was always profiled with all the negative adjectives. Climate change has brought some measure of equality, let me say. In the context of climate change, there is no developing or developed country. We are all in the same place. And being there in the same place positions us as a continent to take advantage of the assets that we have, the renewable assets that we have, the human capital that we have. In any case, by 2050, a quarter of the world's population will be living in our continent. And because of the Africa Continental Free Trade Area, we have managed to assemble 1.4 billion people into one single market. And the place of DTB as a financial institution in that context cannot be taken for granted. It is my belief that TDB will be today $8.5 billion asset bank, but in the next 10 years, maybe 20 billion asset bank. That way, we can leverage on the increasing footprint of TDB alongside all the other institutions that we are developing in our continent. And that is why last week, during the AU media meeting, we proposed that TDB, Afrexim Bank, AFC, ATI be now elevated from being partners of the AU to being special agencies of the Africa Union, so that we can give this institution greater recognition, we can give them better profiling, and we can, as a continent, use their services so that we can grow their capacity to be able to support the trajectory we are all pushing of creating one market and working together as a continent to eliminate barriers to trade, to investment, to business, and be able to create much more prosperity, create more jobs, and position our continent appropriately, because it is on our shoulders to do it. Nobody will do it for us. We must proactively, deliberately, we must be intentional about positioning ourselves in that space, because that's the only way we can get ahead of the situation that we are all in. The first implication of this paradigm, naturally, has been the now widely accepted view that the present architecture of the international economic development framework is deficient and inadequate for the challenges of our time. The Bretton Woods institution system of multilateral financial institution was explicitly designed for another purpose, at another place, and at another time, and is now fundamentally inadequate, unjust, and sometimes unfit for the demands of our complex, dynamic, and interdependent world. We must work with them in the context of how do we reform, how do we work with the international financial architecture to recreate it so that it becomes much more responsive in terms of scale of resources available, cost of resources available, and efficiency in how much time those resources are made available. I think there is a healthy, robust debate, and I expect African financial institutions like TDB to be front and center in that conversation so that they can give our perspective from our continent in that debate, so that we are not negatively profiled all the time as a risky destination for investment or for development financing. And please, DDB, don't join the people who profile us as a risky place. You should be the ones to say Africa is the best place to invest, and that we are not risky at all. In fact, this is a continent that has the highest return on investment, and everybody should be heading in this direction, because in any case, we are the continent of the future. At the International Monetary Fund, European nations took 160 billion of the 2021 issue of special drawing rights, compared to African countries' cumulative amount of 34 billion. I'm very happy that today we will be sharing some shares from TDB, and we will be in a good place, different from the situation I'm describing here. An institutional blueprint which administers development financing this way must be changed urgently, and one made that is fit for purpose. The urgent need for socio-economic transformation must therefore translate into an even more urgent need to redesign the international financial institutions and also design and implement a wholly new global green bank to mobilize resources globally and administer them in a truly inclusive, representative, democratic, and equitable manner. Is that all we need to meet the fierce urgency of now? Hardly. The Pan-African aspiration for socio-economic transformation based on Agenda 2063 looks at African solutions as the primary intervention in confronting African problems. At the forefront of this agenda is regional and continental integration aimed at unlocking Africa's potential on a scale that will make our continent the epicenter of a new industrial age. The Africa Continental Free Trade Area is both a continental and a global game changer. Its scale is unprecedented. The upshot is that it has already inaugurated a market with a population of 1.4 billion people, of the world's youngest people. The critical imperative in integration is the elimination of barriers and borders and the intensification of connectivity through road, rail, port, and fiber optic networks. Investment opportunities are clear and compelling and also abundant in our continent. At this moment, Africa needs a development financing institution framework that can handle this unprecedented opportunity effectively and deliver transformation in terms of integration through connectivity, economic development, and climate resilience. This is why I am proud to be here today to celebrate with the Trade and Development Bank. TDB has demonstrated to us that it has been studying the African development landscape and evolving to meet its challenges. As a result, it has been growing and evolving steadily. The journey from the PTA Bank to DTB Bank has not been one of mere rebranding or superficial change. Our region signaled its irrevocable commitment to expand and accelerate economic integration when the preferential trade area transformed into COMESA for East and Central Africa, and its financial arm, the PTA Bank, followed. Only a decade ago, TDB had an asset base of US $1 billion. It has since experienced a tenfold, almost, expansion of its asset base and is active across global financial markets, including New York, London, UAE, China, India, and Japan. The bank also has a commanding footprint across the continent with presence in Mauritius, Zimbabwe, Ethiopia, the Democratic Republic of Congo, as well as its headquarters in Burundi. Most encouragingly, it is gaining visibility as a strong investor in strategic development projects. You've heard about the Lake Turkana wind power, and an effective partner in economic transformation. In fact, we in Kenya have witnessed the bank's capacity, dynamism, and expertise from close quarters. As a nation undertaking an ambitious trade agenda under the bottom-up economic transformation agenda, as well as a continental and global leader in green and renewable energy, it has been encouraging to have the TDB as a partner in mobilizing financing for various initiatives and projects. For instance, the bank collaborated with other partners, including commercial banks, to successfully arrange and disburse more than $500 million of trade financing to various entities and long-term capital for SMEs. The bank has also been an active supporter of many local enterprises in cross-border investment, thereby promoting the integration agenda both in word and also in deed. As a founding member and one of 46 sovereign and institutional shareholders of the bank, we are proud of TDB's growth and transformation. As an African success story, TDB not only anchors our aspiration for regional and Pan-African integration, it repositions Africa as the emerging site of global transformation and complements our agenda of redefining our continent as the home of abundant opportunity and potential. This capacity to profile Africa effectively in terms of more possibilities and less limits is a significant contribution that unites the Sustainable Development Goals, Agenda 2063, the Africa Continental Free Trade Area, and a new approach to effective climate action and economic transformation. On this 39th annual meeting of the Trade and Development Bank, I see promise and I also see opportunity. I take this opportunity to appreciate the leadership of my good friend, Mr. Admatsu Tadesse. He was among the first people when I was sworn into office to come and offer me some advice, which I take very seriously. Mr. Managing Director, I credit you for your great leadership and vision and the leadership you have provided to your team at the TDB, and you have our support as Government of Kenya and as a shareholder in your great institution. Congratulations to the entire group for your excellent achievements as were listed by the CEO. I wish you all good luck and great success as you continue to work the work of shining a light on Africa as the continent of the future. You have all our support, and I am also, like Professor Ndungu, looking forward to the dividends this afternoon. And to all the good people who have come from different parts, and even the people who are joining from Ghana and from Senegal, we welcome you to this institution, and we look forward to working with you and making sure that we build a financial institution that will support the development of our continent, the progress of our countries, and to support what we must do to create opportunities, create jobs, create enterprise, and make sure that we deal with the challenges of underdevelopment and deal also with the challenges of poverty and create wealth for our nations. You have all our support, you have all our encouragement, and whatever it is that we can do at the policy level, please let us know so that we can support these institutions to be built, because we are benefiting from institutions that have been built by others. We have an opportunity to build these institutions, and we must not miss that opportunity to support these institutions so that they can play their role better. Thank you very much. God bless you. Unfortunately, I have to go. I have an appointment with the good people who have hired me. So I have to honor that appointment somewhere out of town, but I hope you enjoy the rest of your deliberations. Asante sana.